CBP says it's 6.5 million per mile. Your response today was 12 millions per mile. That means $12 billion for 1,000 miles. We're off here by a factor of 3 or 4 with 46 billion. Where's the rest of the 46 billion? The administration says they want 46 billion for a wall. You could pave all of it and still have, 34 billion left over. What's the 34 billion going for?
It'd be also surveillance equipment.
The numbers way off. You could do 1,000 miles for 12 billion. You're asking for 46 billion. So I'm one who's not impressed and would have to see more detail as to where the rest of the money goes. We can't just throw $30 billion out there and say things cost a lot.
I agree.
The Trump administration just asked Congress for $46 billion to build the border wall. Senator Rand Paul got out a calculator. The border with Mexico is roughly 1,950 miles long. About 700 miles already have fencing. 200 to 300 miles are mountains, impossible to wall. That leaves about 1,000 miles that realistically need a wall. At the government's own estimated cost of $12 million per mile, that is $12 billion for 1,000 miles. The administration asked for $46 billion. Senator Paul looked at Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and asked one question: where is the other $34 billion going? She did not have an answer. And that was just the opening, because then Paul went after the NFL, the FIFA World Cup, and a surveillance program that put a former United States Congresswoman under federal watch on commercial flights. This is what the media is not telling you.
Secretary knows, everybody knows, that's the end. We're going to try to move on to the next person to get you out of here. We talked a little bit about the wall earlier. The administration has asked for $46.5 billion for the wall. The border on the Mexican border is about 1,950 miles. We've fenced or walled about 700 of it. That leaves about 1,200 miles. There's 200 or 300 miles of it that probably never going to have a fence on. It's mountainous or just impossible to fence or wall. So I would say realistically, you got under 1,000. But let's just say there's 1,000. You really want to wall on 1,000. CBP says it's 6.5 million per mile. Your response today was 12 millions per mile. That means $12 billion for 1,000 miles. We're off here by a factor of 3 or 4 with 46 billion. Where's the rest of the 46 billion? The administration says they want 46 billion for a wall. You could pave all of it and still have, 34 billion left over. What's the 34 billion going for?
Yeah, Senator, thank you for the question. We do have 702 miles of wall today. 598 of that are steel. The rest of that is temporary, that's in place. Since the president's been in office, over 70 miles has been erected. We have 11 contracts that have gone out and allocated. We also have 5 more that are pending. Based on the dollars that have been requested, it's not just the infrastructure that would be built, that would be the actual wall construction. It would be also surveillance equipment.
The numbers way off. You could do 1,000 miles for 12 billion. You're asking for 46 billion. So I'm one who's not impressed and would have to see more detail as to where the rest of the money goes. We can't just throw $30 billion out there and say things cost a lot.
I agree. We'll get you the specifics on that.
With regard to the drones and all the preparatory work that DHS does and the government does for the NFL and for FIFA, does the NFL pay DHS for the work you do?
Boy, not to my knowledge. I will.
Well, I mean, here's my point. The NFL makes billions of dollars. We're $2 trillion in the hole. I don't care if government shares their technology and government helps out the World Cup. They ought to pay.
Yeah,
people are paying hundreds of dollars for tickets. I mean, thousands of dollars for the NFL, for Super Bowl and things. They're also paying for FIFA, and so these people ought to pay. And so I'm one holding up these authorizations, and I'll let them go forward. But I want people to pay. I mean, it's ridiculous that the average taxpayer who could never afford to go to an NFL Super Bowl has got to pay for their security. Should the government help? If we have technology they don't, perhaps. But they ought to pay. So NFL, FIFA, I think they all ought to pay. And we'll be insisting on trying to put language in that if you're a for-profit entity and the government's helping you, you ought to pay for it. With regard to TSA Quiet Skies and Tulsi Gabbard situation, I suspect there are going to be other people that were caught up in this thing as well. I'm horrified by the idea that we took a former congresswoman and we're surveilling her and riding on jets with her. There was another story of an air marshal whose wife, might have been at January 6th or something, and now we're, have air marshals following another air marshal or his wife. So I want to hear the whole story of what happened. I want to hear that people have been let go, that they're no longer doing this. If there were abuses of Tulsi Gabbard's liberties, I want to hear from that. But I want repercussions to come from this. And I think you've said something's coming. Please let us know, and let us know how the program the destruction of civil liberties can be minimized. I frankly probably have trouble with the whole program, but let's see if there's some way. But we need significant reform. If it needs legislation, please come to us with that. Thank you for your testimony today.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Secretary Noem, for being here.
Senator Rand Paul sat across from Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and did what almost nobody in Washington ever does. He checked the math. The Trump administration had requested $46.5 billion for border wall construction. Paul broke it down step by step right there in the hearing room. The southern border with Mexico runs approximately 1,950 miles. About 700 miles already have some form of fencing or wall in place. Of the remaining 1,250 miles, 200 to 300 run through mountainous or otherwise impassable terrain that can never realistically be fenced. That leaves roughly 1,000 miles that genuinely need wall construction. CBP, Customs and Border Protection, had estimated the cost at $6.5 million per mile. Noem had offered a higher figure of $12 million per mile during the hearing. Paul used her own number. 1,000 miles at $12 million per mile comes to $12 billion. The administration asked for $46 billion. Paul looked at Noem and asked where the other $34 billion was going. He pointed out you could pave the entire 1,000 miles and still have over $30 billion left over. He said he was not impressed and would need significantly more detail before supporting the request. He told her directly, "We cannot just throw $30 billion out there and say things cost a lot." Noem responded by walking through the construction progress. Over 70 miles erected since the president took office. 11 contracts already allocated, 5 more pending. She said the funding was not just for wall construction, but for related infrastructure as well. Paul cut her off. The number was still way off. He said he would need specifics on where every dollar was going before he could support the request. Noem agreed to provide them. Then Paul moved to a completely different target, the NFL and FIFA. He pointed out that the Department of Homeland Security regularly provides security support for major sporting events, deploying drones, technology, and personnel for Super Bowls, World Cups, and other large-scale events. He asked Noem whether the NFL paid DHS for any of that work. Noem said not to her knowledge. Paul was direct. The NFL makes billions of dollars. The United States government is $2 trillion in debt. The average American taxpayer who could never afford a Super Bowl ticket, let alone a FIFA World Cup seat, was subsidizing the security of some of the most profitable entertainment organizations on earth. He said he had been holding up certain government authorizations and would continue to do so until language was added requiring for-profit entities to pay for government security services they benefited from. If the government has technology they do not, fine, share it, but make them pay for it. NFL, FIFA, all of them. Then came the most serious topic of the exchange, the TSA's Quiet Skies program and Tulsi Gabbard. Paul said he was horrified to learn that a former United States Congresswoman had been placed under surveillance by the program, with federal air marshals riding on commercial flights specifically to monitor her movements. He called it an abuse of civil liberties. He said there was also a report of an air marshal being surveilled by other air marshals, apparently because of a connection to January 6th, and said the entire situation demanded a full accounting. He told Noem he wanted to hear the complete story of what happened. He wanted confirmation that the people responsible had been removed. He wanted repercussions. And he said he had fundamental problems with the Quiet Skies program as a whole, that it needed significant reform and potentially new legislation to prevent future abuses. Noem indicated that accountability was coming and committed to keeping the committee informed. 3 issues, 1 hearing, $34 billion in border wall funding nobody can account for, taxpayers banking security for billion-dollar sports leagues, and a government surveillance program that put a sitting member of Congress on a federal watch list and had air marshals following her onto planes. Senator Rand Paul left the hearing with promises of specifics and repercussions. Whether either arrives is another question entirely.